Good evening, folks. Something I wanted to talk to you tonight about, something a little bit different. I'm thinking it might be helpful and interesting. Hopefully a little bit entertaining, too. We're going to be talking about the unconscious and more along the lines of kind of what that means exactly. It's a movie that came out some years back called Arrival, starring Amy Adams. If you haven't seen it, I'd highly recommend it, especially after looking at it with this sort of lens. So, this little talk is a bit of a swamp talk I recorded a little earlier. So we're going to get into that here in a minute. But for now, I wanted to read something that's from an outfit called Young Platform. And they're referring to kind of what I'm talking about as the inner companion. So here we go. Jung's method of working with dreams helps us attune to the voices of the inner companion. Jung believed that many of our difficulties come from losing contact with our instincts and the age-old unforgotten wisdom stored deep within us. To make contact with this wisdom, Jung says we could turn to our dreams. The inner companion grabs our attention in dreams with powerful images that present inner and outer dynamics. When we work with dreams, we receive different perspectives that challenge and expand our consciousness. This helps us get out of stuckness and navigate through anxiety or depression. It calls us deeper into your vocation and relationships. We will learn to dance with the inner companion and the flow of life when we embrace our dreams. And with that, let's go ahead and get on into it. Here we have the arrival of the unconscious. Let's see, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Arrival, by any chance. I'm not talking about that weird thing with Charlie Sheen in the 90s. If you haven't seen it, or even if you have, and if not, for what it's worth, I'd highly recommend it, especially with this kind of way of looking at it. Basically, it starts with, I forget her character's name, but Amy, whatever her last name is. Amy Adams, that's it. Her character is a professor of linguistics. She's going to work. She starts her lecture. She works at a college, as professors tend to do. But anyway, she comes in to start giving her lecture, and all the students are just like transfixed and just jaw dropped. And she's like, she's trying to talk, and she's like, okay, what's going on? Like, you might want to turn the TV on. She does, and it's all over the news. There's these weird looking objects that have just touched down in certain parts of the world. And they're very otherworldly. So you can imagine this is a bit of some cause for concern. At some point or another, she ends up back home. And these flashbacks start happening of between her and her daughter. These memories and these particular moments they shared together. And in the middle of the night, a bunch of carnage is coming out of the sky with the helicopters and whatnot, as tends to happen. The military's got something in mind and they want to go snooping around and bothering you at home. Forrest Whitaker gets out. Of course, he's playing some kind of colonel or something. I don't remember his rank. He's like, listen, lady, we got this fucking situation. We need somebody who can understand some language. Stat. She's like, yeah, okay, well, fuck it, why not? Why not? Got some wild shit going on out there. He's like, yeah, we do. It's fucking terrifying. She's like, yeah, okay, but anyway. She gets on the chopper. She heads to one of the locations. The military's got their bases all set up there and everything. Her job is to try to dialogue with whomever or whatever is in these things. Well, she gets all suited up with the rest of the team and goes in there, and they've got all these safety protocols for approaching the screen, if you will. That's basically this kind of screened off area in this room inside the craft or object, whatever it is. And that's where the interactions take place. And they take their scissor lift up and get inside this little chamber, this kind of like weird hallway. And they just kind of float right into it because it's got its own gravity inside of there. And I walk down the hallway and get to that screen. And then these two Lovecraftian nightmares show up behind the screen. It's like, oh my God, what is what is going on there? They look like giant squid hand things. And there's this environment behind there that's very ethereal, aquatic almost. It's hard to describe. It's very alien. And there's two of these things in there. And at one point, she just goes on a hunch. Says, fuck it. She's not listening to the protocol. She just takes her mask off because she's got this giant hazmat suit on. She's like, I'm assuming that they can't recognize her. They can't see her. I mean, like, really see her. She takes her mask off and she goes up to the screen and she writes some stuff down on this little dry erase board. It says who she is, what her name is. Now, mind you, before this, there was no luck with the communications. And these things just stood there and watched. But this time, something different happened. One of them put out its little finger tentacle thing. And like, just put its hand on the screen. And then so did she. And she looks at her friend, which is Jeremy Renner. I forget what his name is in the movie, but he's some kind of scientist or mathematician or something. I don't remember. Something like that. And she's got a big smile on her face, like, I'd call that an introduction. Well, then they start communicating a little bit. And as it turns out, these things have just been standing around this whole time. They start putting this kind of ink stuff out of their finger tentacle, and it's these weird symbols. They're circular, but there's these little squiggly differences in each one. This is their language. And Amy Adams, or I forget her character's name, but this is the actress, is learning how to communicate with them and teaching them our words and learning their words. And, at some points there's little breaks in between all this. Everybody goes back in the bunker, the encampment, the military encampment. And she keeps having these flashbacks about her daughter and these little moments in her life. And some of these things her daughter says are these almost like little clues about what's going on. And she remembers. She's like, wait a minute, is that applicable to this? At one point, she's having a dream and it's like she sees one of these squid things like just standing there. We're starting to get the impression that, maybe they're getting into her head a little bit or something. But anyway, the communications continue. And wouldn't you know, while all this stuff is going on, there's a lot of bad ideas that are getting spread, a lot of presumptions about these creatures and these crafts. A lot of people talking about how we got to do something about it. Because it's war. Ooh, it's war. Well, this kind of idea gets to one of the military personnel. And during one of the last exchanges, with the whole team going in there to talk to these things, a bomb is smuggled in. The bomb gets in there and it's just disguised. It's just with some pile of crap they brought in. And right before it goes off, one of the creatures just jumps in front of the screen, so to speak. I mean, it's still on the other side of the wall or whatever the hell this thing is. Thrusts the whole team out of there. And you don't know this until later, but essentially it sacrificed itself to protect everybody. Now, this isn't revealed right away. We don't know this. And it's causing a panic, a big panic. The team gets out of there and everybody's in the bunker and it's a big panic and they're evacuating the facility. Amy has another one of those flashbacks about her daughter. And this is dealing with what these creatures' motivation could possibly be. And the daughter is playing with Play-Doh or something and has like an effigy, Play-Doh figure that it's made out of one of these things. She says something about, Mommy, what's a zero-sum game? And Amy gets it in her head that she's just got to get out of the facility, sneak out, and just get back up in the craft. So she does. She gets the hell out of there. And some little extra thing is out there for her from the craft, because there's no scissor lift, and it just brings it right up on in there. And this time, instead of there being a screen in between, it's like she is behind it in this environment, this strange, ethereal kind of aquatic environment. And they had nicknamed these two creatures that they were talking to Abbott and Costello. If I remember, Abbott is the one that sacrificed itself. But this way, and now she's dialoguing right with Costello, because she knows their language for the most part now. She's been studying it for a while. And he can understand what she's saying. And she's asking him questions. And he's replying, like, she's like, "What are you why are you here? What do you want?" And he says to give humans a weapon. And they had said this before. And this caused a lot of concern. But she had the impression that maybe this was some kind of mistranslation. Because what turns out what they were offering wasn't a weapon. It was a language. A language that exists outside of time and within it and around it. A new way of understanding things. An evolutionary leap of some kind. And she's asking him, why are you giving this to us? Why? And he says, if I remember correctly, 2,000 years from now, or I'm sorry, right now, humanity needs the heptapods. And that's what the humans have nicknamed these creatures, heptapods. I think that's it, if I remember correctly. But in 2,000 years, the heptapods will need humans. That's all they were there for. Communication. And some kind of symbiotic, evolutionary sort of changes. I mean, the thing is, as far as evolution goes, in the traditional format, if you will, well, symbiosis happens quite a bit. That can be a big part of many forms of evolution. One example being of how wolves and ravens go running around together, playing with each other, helping each other hunt, looking out for one another too. It's incredible. If I remember correctly, the ravens might tip the wolves off to where some kind of prey animal is. They'll go get it. They'll get what they want out of it. And then there's plenty left over for the ravens afterwards. Like, oh yeah, have it. Everybody's very satisfied with this whole arrangement. The wolves aren't trying to turn the ravens into wolves, and the ravens aren't trying to turn the wolves into ravens. They're working together. Symbiotic. Communication. Cycling back to the whole heptapods thing, I've used a few images of them in a couple of videos as a brief mimetic image of what I'm talking about sometimes with the unconscious. And I had a friend reach out to me. He's like, "Geez, what the hell was that? Why she use that terrifying image? What am I even looking at there? Talking about the unconscious and you're telling me I'm going to run into shit like this?" Maybe, kind of, at times, but it's also to show that, A, looks can be very deceiving. Sometimes something so alien, and sometimes something so threatening looking, might be anything but. And it's also to say, it's kind of to symbolize some of the unconscious in and of itself, because it can seem very, to the uninitiated, if you will, it can seem very unconventional, a little alien, sometimes a little scary. And there can be some crap in there that you got to learn how to deal with. But the system as a whole, in one way of looking at it, it's like, I know it looks a certain way, but essentially what you've got there is something that just wants to talk to you. And it wants to talk to you because you just might need its help. Big time. You might not even know how, because it sees things from a whole other angle. And it just might need your help too, at some point. Maybe that's what all this is kind of about, some way, shape, or form. I think that's it for this one. Thanks for tuning in. Oh, Jesus, I forgot something really important, the whole thing with the daughter. So, when A.B. Adams' character is in the final scene with Costello, the heptapod, and this may come as a surprise to the audience at this point, but one of the other questions she asks Costello, the heptapod, is, who is that little girl that I keep seeing? And he tells her, well, that's your daughter. And she's like, what? What the fuck are you talking about? I don't have any daughter. What are you, fucking crazy? No, she doesn't give him the V-zombie talk. And she's like, what are you talking about? I don't have a daughter. And Costello's like, well, yeah, I mean, not yet. But you will. All of a sudden, there's another flash in there. Whew, sorry, I get a little emotional talking about this stuff sometimes. But anyway, it's kind of another flashback, and she sees who the father is. Guess who? Jeremy Renner. Well, his character. No, not the actor. That'd be a little weird. Like, God, you look just like my friend, the scientist. I mean, I thought it was you at first, too, but then I'm thinking, you know, why'd the military go pick up Jeremy Renner? What good could he possibly do to this whole situation? But anyway, that's the thing. As she was learning the language, she was starting to see things a little differently. It was just happening. It was a byproduct of this whole thing. Yeah, I think that's it for real this time. Thanks for tuning in.